Youth of the Mission responds to the devastating floods in Kerela, India. We explore the global problem of human trafficking and what YWAM is doing to fight it. Now is your last chance to register for YWAM Together 2018 in Thailand. YWAM works to bring relief to Lombok, Indonesia after a recent earthquake. YWAM Organic brings us 3 news stories this month, and more on this episode of the Youth of the Mission News Show podcast. Thank you for downloading this, the 108th episode of the Youth of the Mission News Show podcast. I'm your host, Bill Hutchison. You can contact us, subscribe to future episodes, leave comments, and find links to all the stories we talk about in the show notes for this podcast at ywampodcast.com/108. Floods in the southern Indian state of Kerela have killed over 350 people since June. According to YWAM Kochi, which is in the state of Kerela, it's the worst natural disaster that they've ever seen. The rains have forced authorities to open 33 dams in the state, and the majority of the state is flooded. Roads are washed away, and places have been completely isolated. YWAM Kochi is responding to the needs in their state in a few different ways. Already, hundreds of people are staying at their location, and there are government doctors visiting and helping the people staying there. They have an urgent need for blankets, bed sheets, mats, and food. YWAM Kochi is also putting together a task force of skilled and able people to assist with the rehabilitation of the flood victims. If you're able to help with either of these needs, visit their website, ywamkochi.org, to get in touch with them, or you can contact them through their Facebook page, which is linked to in the show notes at ywampodcast.com/108. Now, are we doing enough in the global fight against modern slavery and human trafficking? According to the International Labor Organization, an agency of the United Nations, there are currently an estimated 40.3 million people in modern slavery and 152 million in child labor around the world. Of the victims of modern slavery, 1 in 4, or over 10 million, are children. Many of these victims are exploited in the private sector, such as domestic work, construction, or agriculture. Almost 5 million are victims in the commercial sex industry, of which 99% are women. Often overlooked in the modern slavery numbers are also the over 15 million people, of whom almost 85% are women, who are in forced marriages. Over a third of all victims of forced marriages were children at the time of their marriage. Of those people who are trafficked, 99% are never rescued.
When I hear statistics such as 99% of human trafficking victims will never be rescued, that completely breaks my heart, and I want to see that number completely eradicated. I want to see every single person who's been trafficked, exploited, abused to be rescued and restored. And these statistics can be so overwhelming sometimes when you hear things like 50% of people being trafficked are under the age of 18 and 80% are women, 20% are men. You hear these statistics and it can be very overwhelming, but I know that we have this hope. We have God, His strength and His power, and His heart is so much for those people. And so trusting that, God is using us, using our team to be part of the statistic breakers and changing the statistics around, valuing the individual one person at a time. Once they've been restored, they can go out and value one person at a time, and it can just be this ripple effect of bringing hope and restoration throughout the world.
There are many examples of modern-day slavery happening around the world. Recently, a team from YWAM Madison visited a village in Nepal and saw firsthand the results of human trafficking on the village there.
We came to the village and we already sensed this darkness. It was really heavy and a lot of our team members felt the weight.
So in this area of the Himalayan villages, Newcote, there's thousands of women trafficked every year.
I remember holding some of the little girls and thinking, where are your older sisters? Where have they gone? And where will you be in the next couple of years? Because the age 5 to 14 is the ones that are usually taken. And it's just such a scary feeling being there, thinking, who knows what's going to happen to this little girl.
So hard, especially looking at the little girls and thinking, you could be here today and gone tomorrow.
Often it will be just for money. They'll be tricked into it. They will come in and tell them, oh, there's a better life in the village.
Hopefully with this village stopping human trafficking, it'll spread out to the other villages throughout and stop it for good.
Recent furor over an Instagram post by a Kuwaiti blogger helped to highlight the plight of many so-called domestic servants in the Middle East who are treated no better than slaves. This blogger said, "How can you have a servant at home who keeps their own passport with them?" They asked in a video, which has now since been removed. "What is worse is that they have 1 day off every week. To take a day off every week, that's 4 days a month," she said. "Those are the days that she'll be out, and we don't know what she'll be doing on those days with their passport on her. How can you have a servant at home who keeps their passport with them? If they ran away and went back to the country, who will refund me?" So, unfortunately, these conditions are not uncommon in the Middle East, with migrant workers typically having their freedom severely limited by their so-called employers. These include being locked in the house with no way to get out, having their passports taken from them, having their wages withheld, not having access to any form of communication, only being allowed to go out of the house while being escorted by a member of their employer's family, being subject to sexual and physical assault without protection from local law enforcement, being forced to work 21-hour days, not being allowed to choose their own employer and being sold and passed around like slaves, and not being allowed to leave the country without their employer's explicit permission. Many of these abuses are made possible because of the kafala system, which affects 23 million workers that are present in many rich Arab Gulf states in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. It is estimated that in Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states there are over 1 million slaves. Qatar is actually due to host the upcoming 2022 football or soccer FIFA World Cup. There's been intense scrutiny over the use of foreign and migrant workers in the building of these facilities, with many claiming that the industrial and construction workers are being housed in inhumane conditions and the basic safety measure for the worker is being ignored. Even last month, as France celebrated their win in the 2018 World Cup, there are fresh reports coming out of Qatar of the horrific conditions that the migrant workers are subject to. Sharon Burrow is an advocate for workers' rights in Qatar and recently gave an interview about the migrant worker situation there.
How do Qataris view the people who are there building this vast infrastructure for a country with only 200,000 citizens?
I don't think they see them as human. If you can't find a job, if you can't feed your family, and you hear that you can make extraordinary amounts of money by comparison, as they're told, in Qatar, then you'll do anything.
There are 1.4 million migrant workers in Qatar, 94% of the labor force. To get to Qatar, they take out loans to pay recruitment agencies that place them in jobs. Once in Qatar, they're subject to a system known as kafala, which legally binds them to their employers, typically for several years.
The kafala system means you are owned by another individual. Everything you do is at the behest of another human being. Qatar is a slave state in the 21st century. You sign a contract, you're really optimistic, you can send money home for your family. You arrive in Qatar, the contract is more often than not torn up in front of you and they pay you what they choose to.
Despite pledging to make reforms in their migrant worker system in Qatar, reports continue to come out about the failure to follow through on that. Just north of where I am here in Australia, there is more accounts of slave labor in the fishing fleets of Southeast Asia. A few years ago, Australia banned the import of seafood from that part of the world, and I, like many, complained about it because it meant a huge cost increase in the cost of seafood. The reason for that ban was because of reports of rampant slave labor in the crews of many of the fishing vessels in the area. Honestly, if I had known that that's what the bans were about, I would have been all for it and I would not have been complaining.
For years, Thailand's fishing industry has been profiting from the misery of some of the most persecuted people on earth, all while feeding the growth of a brutal transnational people trafficking industry. This is the story of how one of the world's largest export industries, supplying seafood to millions of us around the world, is tainted by the systematic exploitation of the Rohingya people. In 2014, The Guardian revealed how the prawns on your plate were produced by Cambodian and Burmese slave labour in the Thai fishing industry. 1 year on, we found Rohingya survivors who had also spent years enslaved on Thai fishing boats after being sold from a network of jungle trafficking camps. And we also discovered fishermen increasingly turning from fishing to human trafficking as their industry faces crisis. Hundreds of thousands of Rohingya men, women and children have fled state-sanctioned violence in Burma since 2012, forced to take to the seas in a desperate attempt to reach the relative safety of Malaysia. A vast industry has emerged to exploit this misery. Many of those migrants attempting the crossing will end up being held to ransom by human traffickers.
They're tortured, they're beaten, they are deprived of adequate food, deprived of adequate shelter.
Survivors told us that rape and sexual violence were an everyday reality. Some of those who couldn't pay were held in the camps for years. Others were sold.
When men or boys are unable to pay the traffickers to secure their freedom, they, in many cases, are sold to fishing boats where they're used as slave labor.
The sales were arranged by brokers who bought and sold people from the camps to the boats. A young Rohingya migrant told us that he was sold from a jungle camp onto a boat in Songkhla in southern Thailand. This was the same port identified by The Guardian's 2014 investigation into slavery in the supply chain of farmed shrimp sold in supermarkets across the world. And this trade in vulnerable Rohingyas has only been possible with the collusion of the authorities.
This is a situation in the Thai fishing sector specifically that's been going on since the 90s at least, as far as we can tell. It has involved the complicity and, in some cases, the direct involvement of Thai officials. Thai officials have essentially sold, or in some cases just handed over, thousands upon thousands of people to human trafficking syndicates.
In May 2015, mass graves containing the remains of Rohingya refugees were uncovered. This forced the Thai military government to acknowledge the existence of a trade which has been operating uninterrupted for years. Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha set a deadline of 10 days to find the remaining camps and bring the trafficking operations to a halt. High-profile arrests followed, including a 3-star military general who pleaded not guilty to multiple charges. The Thai government now insists that its trafficking problem is over. This claim is disputed by human rights groups.
We think that the investigations that have taken place in Thailand so far have not even scratched the surface. We actually believe there are probably many more camps that have not yet been uncovered, at least on the Thai side of the border. For a long time, the sad fact of the matter was that the only people who wanted the Rohingya were the brokers and the traffickers.
The Thai government is also facing pressure to tackle its other human trafficking problem, slave labour in its fishing industry. It has pushed through a series of reforms aimed at shutting down illegal practices, including forced labour. The cost of these reforms do not sit well with the boat owners, who for years have relied on cheap migrant labour to survive.
As the industry has evolved across the last several decades, the sad truth is forced labour has become fundamental to the economic logic of the Thai seafood sector.
Rapid, unregulated growth and decades of overfishing have already left the industry on the brink of a catastrophe.
You saw a very significant decrease in catch rates across the last several decades. That means ships have to spend 25 plus times more time at sea to catch the same amount of fish. And as a result, some ship captains have been forced either out of the fishing sector or to go into other businesses because fishing is no longer economically viable.
And now the industry is facing mounting pressure from vital trade partners in Europe and the US.
The EU has threatened to ban Thai fishing imports, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So Thailand would stand to lose billions of dollars in sales to the EU if it doesn't clean up its fishing sector soon.
If you suddenly strip out forced labor, an industry can fall apart, and maybe it should.
In Ranong in Western Thailand, we found fishermen increasingly turning to another line of business, boat owners told us that they are converting their boats to carry people instead of fish. One of the boat owners also told us that people generate 3 times more money than fish. He says he knows of at least 10 local boats who are transporting around 12,000 Rohingya migrants a month. These 12,000 migrants could generate up to $24 million in ransom payments. As boat owners become more involved with the traffickers' operations, survivors say there has been a grim evolution in this trade of people. As their jungle camps are shut down, trafficking syndicates are reportedly taking their operations offshore to cargo ships acting as holding pens for thousands of Rohingyas, facilitated by Thai fishing boats.
That audio was pulled from a larger report and story from The Guardian that is linked to at ywampodcast.com/108. I'd highly recommend that you have a look at it. It's actually just some audio from a full 15-minute mini documentary, and then you can also read the report through the link. Well, the original story is from 2014. Reports from even last year indicate that the practice of murder, slavery, and forced labor in the fishing industry is still prevalent. Unfortunately, child soldiers are still commonly used around the world in some state armies and many non-state militias. Most of these children were kidnapped from their homes, and their families were killed or enslaved. They're forced to be fighters, cooks, suicide bombers, human shields, messengers, spies, or even for sexual purposes. There are estimated to be over 300,000 child soldiers in the world today. These children live in a state of shock and in desperate need of medical and psychological attention. As soldiers, they suffer in many overwhelming ways. 90% of them would have been beaten. 88% have witnessed murder. 86% are threatened with death. 59% have been commanded to abduct other children. 53% are commanded to commit murder. And 26% have been raped. Now, around the world, many people, including children, are used for industrial, agriculture, and mining. Many of these people live in slave-like conditions.
Child labor has many faces, has devastated many young lives. The last decade has seen their numbers decline, with 30 million fewer working children globally. But there are still an estimated 215 million girls and boys who start their days at work in a mine or a field, rather than a classroom.
We go to the tobacco field, then we go to bed, and then follows the same. We wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Today, according to the International Labour Organization, more than half of all child laborers are in the most hazardous forms of work. Some 60% are in agriculture, domestic work, or street vending. At even greater risk are children in commercial sexual exploitation, slavery, and forced labor, including those forced to serve as child soldiers. In 2006, the goal to eliminate these worst forms of child labor seemed within reach. However, in the last 4 years, child labor numbers have decreased only by 7 million, a mere 3%.
We are still making progress, but that progress is too slow. We still have 215 million children working in child labor. 115 million of those are in the worst forms of child labor. That's far too many, and the progress is far too slow for us to meet the goal of eliminating the worst forms of child labor by 2016.
That child and slave labor, like I said, is rampant in so many different industries. It includes the garment industry, mining industry, like for gold, diamonds, and rare minerals, fruit, tobacco, coffee, and cocoa picking, and as well as household workers and servants. Those are just some of the challenges and the horrific conditions that people and victims of human trafficking and modern-day slavery are experiencing around the world. As Christians, we're called to bring justice to these people. Isaiah 1 verse 17 says, "Learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, and plead for the widow." James 2 verses 14 to 17 says, "What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, be warmed and filled,' without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also, faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead." And Deuteronomy 10 verse 18 says, "He executes justice for the fatherless and the widow, and loves the sojourner, giving him food and clothing. So we're challenged by our faith to do something for these people. And around the world, YWAM is involved in many different ministries to victims of human trafficking and modern-day slavery. YWAM of Latvia runs their Freedom 61 ministry in Riga.
Freedom 61. So it's a ministry connected with YWAM. It's part of YWAM Latvia. And Freedom 61's goal is really to bring hope and light to the areas of like sexual exploitation and trafficking in that area. And so we do that in some different ways. One is that we have a cafe in the city where we welcome the ladies who work on the street in prostitution to come to get soup and coffee and tea, just to get to know them, give them a safe place that they can share if they want, or just, to have some healthy relationship. We also try to bring awareness, what we share at schools and orphanages about trafficking and what to look for, and just to try to educate young people. And we also do outreach to Old Town. There's a lot of sex tourism there, so we go out to reach the guys that come also, to just bring awareness, because a lot of them don't know. We also have a center in the countryside where women can choose if it's women from the cafe or women from other like chaotic backgrounds, that they can come. It's about a year long to really pursue like health and new life, and to get away from whatever it is that they're coming from. The ways that I've seen like restoration and breakthrough is seeing women actually go through the program at the center and actually graduate. So last September we had like our very first graduation. And so there are a few ladies who actually graduated and completed the program, really, to share what God did in their lives and where they're at. And so my heart is more for restoration and really seeing God like heal and restore women's lives. And for them to really have like a heart to know God and desire to be healthy and to grow and to discover things.
You can find out more about their ministry, including more about the cafe, the Old Town Outreach, the Women's Center, and how to get involved on their website, freedom61.org. Another ministry that YWAM is running in Budapest, Hungary, is called Hope Dies Last. Hope Dies Last is a justice ministry reaching out creatively to trafficked, marginalized, and exploited people. Their desire is to serve with excellence, creating media for under-resourced organizations and addressing the root causes of human trafficking and sexual exploitation.
My name is Chad, and I'm a part of Hope Dies Last. I've been doing anti-trafficking work full-time for the last 6 years. In college, I became very interested in war photography and noticed the environments people were in and the injustices that were in the world. We really saw a need for ethically made media, and I wanted to use that skill to help organizations get their stories out. Honestly, this injustice won't change unless we do something to affect the demand. My role, typically when we go to the red light district, is talk to the men. Often you can be the person to change their mind in whatever act they're going to make next. Humanizing the girls by even saying their name wipes away their view of these objects that are behind the window. Overcoming shame and anger that you might feel in there is key. But also being someone that is soft at heart. We're not going to make a change in this injustice unless men start getting off the couch and doing something. We can change the atmosphere of a place that is just for exploitation. I think that this generation really wants to create change and be purposeful in the work that they do. You have the tools and you have the abilities that God's given you. We need more people to see sustained change in this injustice.
The goal of the Hope Dies Last ministry is to see people living in freedom, knowing their inherent worth, and contributing to society in a meaningful way. They work throughout Central Europe and are based out of Budapest, Hungary. There are ways that you can get involved short-term, long-term, as well as with small-time activism and through prayer. Hope Dies Last is also participating in the Shine Conference in Bad Blankenburg, Germany, from October 4th to the 7th, 2018. The focus of the Shine Conference is to free people from slavery. Check out hopedieslast.org to find out more. YWAM Thailand is actively involved in human trafficking prevention. This includes many different ministries, including ARC International, Children at Risk Ministry, Women at Risk Ministries, the House of Refuge Rehabilitation Center, as well as the Tamar Center.
Hello, I'm Nella and I'm taking you today to the city of Pattaya in Thailand. Pattaya is famous for prostitution, and in this city there are about 30,000 women working in prostitution.
Nella Davidsen, a woman from the Netherlands, has become very passionate about the lives of the prostitutes in Pattaya, Thailand. Together with Everdien Koekoek, she left her comfortable life in the Netherlands behind and moved to Thailand. In 1999, they founded the Tamar Center, just outside the center of Pattaya. Since then, the Tamar Center has grown extensively, and in 2009 the center opened a second location, right in the middle of the red light district of Pattaya. With this second location, the center wanted to be closer to the women and be a beacon of hope in their need. In these past years, the workload has grown, and today many members of the staff of the Tamar Center are ex-prostitutes who used to work in the bars themselves.
Most of these women come from the poor villages in the northeast of Thailand. Many of them have been abused as a child. Many of them come from very poor families. And they are here in the city of Pattaya trying to find an answer to life. Many times they think finding a foreign husband, finding a Westerner will be the answer to life and will provide their family with money and finances that they need. But many of them are broken and disappointed, and soon they find out that in Pattaya they can't find the answer working in the bars and in prostitution.
To make contact with the women working in the bars, the members of the Tamar Center organize Reaching Out Nights. 3 times a week they go into the red light zones and into the bars to make contact with the women who work there. They offer them free English classes at the center. A few times a year, the Tamar Center also organizes parties for the women working in the bars. They receive a free meal, play games, and are informed about the work of the center. If a woman decides to leave the prostitution, she will be offered a 3-month training and a way to make a living by working in the center. She's given a place to live in one of the houses owned by the Tamar Center. During this time, she will receive intensive counseling as a start for her healing process. Social pressure, poverty, and lack of schooling are the main ingredients for the problems these women have to endure. The main focus of the center, therefore, is education and training. The Tamar Center offers a variety of courses: bakery, working in a studio to make jewelry and cards, hairdresser, hostess in a restaurant, computer training. After the 3-month training, the women will receive counseling to look for a regular job outside the center. This is essential for reintegration into society and being part of a local community without losing self-respect and dignity. To get to the core of the problem, the Tamar Center developed prevention programs. These programs are used locally but also internationally to get awareness across and inform the next generation about the possibility to make a different choice.
You can see many of YWAM Thailand's efforts towards the prevention of human trafficking on their website, ywamthai.org. YWAM Perth Australia runs a ministry called Priceless that works towards the prevention, release, and care for those who are enslaved.
I think it can often be a daunting thing to think through, okay, I have to leave all my comforts to help with this, and pray about it and see what God's calling you to do. If He's calling you to leave your things, then He will provide. He'll provide a way. You know, I've seen incredible provision in my own life when I have left the comforts of home to pursue this passion and to see God really transform. He's provided everything that I could ever need and more.
We'd definitely love to have you on our team so that we can help you use the gifts that God's given you to make a positive impact in the area of human trafficking and prostitution. If you're passionate about helping vulnerable people, then we'd love to have you come and join our team in the practical outreach that we do in the city of Perth, but also internationally.
If you join Priceless Ministry, you have the opportunity to partner for the global cause of ending the exploitation and sale of human beings. This is an incredible honor and privilege.
So I joined Priceless because I believe that every single human on earth has worth that God has given to us because we are His children and He loves us. But we live in a world where that's often so stripped away. People tell us we're not good enough, we're not smart enough. This happens to people all the time. I know in my own life there's been things done to me that have made me feel completely worthless. My heart is that people will be restored in their identity, because that's what Jesus did for me. He gave me an identity, gave me worth, and I believe that He has that for every single human. Human trafficking is going on all over the globe. It's not just going on, in these foreign lands, but it's happening right here in your neighborhoods. It's going to need to stand up and fight for these people who have lost their voice, who've lost their identity. And Priceless has given me a platform to really work with people who their identity has been completely stripped away from them. God's heart is for them to be restored, and He wants to use us to bring that restoration.
Priceless works towards 5 different objectives: prevention, advocacy, research and investigation, networking, and restoration. There are many ways that you can get involved. If you visit ywamperth.org.au, you can find out more. University of the Nations Bali is in the pioneering stages of establishing an anti-human trafficking center and safe house. Through their Girls in Crisis ministry, which began in 2007, they're already well established with many girls in Bali, and they desire to expand that ministry and to continue to help the girls to get out of the sex trade. Check out uofnbali.org to find out more. University of the Nations Cambodia runs Children at Risk ministries in Chom Chau and Bati.
Children at Risk is an organization existing to offer free educational teachings for children who have been displaced into the slums of Phnom Penh. Our vision is to see the community in Chom Chau empowered to protect the children at risk, value families, education, and embrace hope for a better future. In 2007, a slum with over 2,000 families was relocated out of their homes. The lack of education and employment means they are at risk of prostitution, drugs, gambling, and many other issues. Our training center offers many different programs to help aid and educate this community.
We have a kids club with the kids, and we're teaching Bible to them, they can know Jesus more in their life.
We work clinic. We wash hair the children. We cut nail the children. We teach children about the healthy, like that. Their family, they don't have enough money to let them go to school. That's why we try to help them.
U of N Cambodia runs community centers in both locations, where they offer kids clubs, education and school support, a Christ-centered environment, sports ministries, and social issues awareness seminars. You can find out more on the University of the Nations Cambodia website, uofnphomfen.com, or you can find the link at ywampodcast.com/108. Left on their own, India's street children are exploited, abused, denied parenting, a safe home, food, and education. They're also easy targets to be recruited for child labor and to be trafficked. YWAM has projects to aid street children in various locations in India, where they reunite children with their families, get the children permanently off the streets, prepare the children to live in society, provide homes for the children that are truly destitute, and offer counseling for disturbed children. YWAM India has ministered to over 7,000 children through their shelters in Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, and Delhi. Some of these children stay at the shelters, and some drop in for daily bath and meal. To date, the shelters have reunited over 60 children with their families, enrolled others in school, and provided vocational training to other boys who now hold down well-paying jobs. Check out ywamindia.org to find out more. Now, if you're currently involved in a ministry to modern slaves or victims of human trafficking, please just let me know, because I'd love to share it with more people and the other listeners to this podcast on the next episode of the Youth of the Mission News Show podcast. Now, this is just a reminder that YWAM Together will be happening in Thailand from September 2nd to September 7th, and now is one of your last opportunities to register.
Welcome to a family reunion. I want to invite you to not miss our YWAM Gathering 2018 in Thailand. Remember, this is a time when God always speaks to us as a mission. We are held together by our vision, our values, and our relationships. All of that's going to happen there. You don't want to miss.
YWAM Together 2018 is for all YWAMers and YWAM alumni who are engaged throughout the spheres of society. Last I heard, they're expecting around 3,000 people to be in attendance. Our YWAM Global family are coming together from across the globe, and we want you there too. Prepare to be refreshed, renewed, challenged, encouraged, loved, and supported. Visit the YWAM Together website, ywamtogether.com, and prayerfully consider attending. In early August, the Indonesian island of Lombok was devastated by an earthquake that left over 300 dead. Since the initial earthquake, the island has been hit by over 450 aftershocks that have continued to deliver damage to the communities. The magnitude 7.0 earthquake damaged or destroyed nearly 68,000 homes and has left over 270,000 people homeless or displaced. A team from UofN Bali is planning to go to one of the remote villages in Lombok with relief supplies. Some of the YWAM staff members know the people in the area around the village. Most of the homes have already been destroyed, and the people are sleeping in the rice fields. Their needs right now are for tarps, tents, blankets, rice, water, and other food items. UofN Bali is currently raising the money for the relief items to bring with the team, and you can find out more on their website, uofnbali.org. This month, YWAM Organic at ywamorganic.org bring us another 3 exciting stories from around the mission.
Christ over and over said to minister to the widows, and this is exactly what we're doing, is the widow and widowers.
You were so excited when we pulled up.
It's heartwarming. I mean, they are so excited to see you and just so genuine and so generous and warm and open. It's just, it's exciting to just go and visit on the one-on-one.
So we really are moving past a post-Christian environment in our cities to a post-secular environment in which religious pluralism is really the norm.
For more than 1 billion people in the world, Hinduism is not just a religion. It is a way of life. For the Hindu, it is the eternal tradition, the eternal way beyond human history.
The stories that are featured this month are Reach Out, Touch One Ministry in Uganda, Global Gates, Post-Secular Cities, and The Eternal Way about Hinduism. You can see the full stories on the YWAM Organic website, ywamorganic.org. In a recent article at The Independent Australia, podcasting was likened to the new Gutenberg revolution. Edison Research has recently found that 44% of Americans have listened to a podcast, and 26% of people in the USA have listened to a podcast in the last month. Podcasting offers a unique medium to communicate with people online, is not limited in time or format like traditional media, and has the potential to reach a global audience. Starting on September 24th, we're launching the first YWAM Podcasting and Missions course. It's a 12-week online course that includes online teaching by David Jackson from the School of Podcasting and online group meetings for all of us who are doing the course together. During the course, we'll be looking at different topics such as planning your podcast, developing quality and engaging content, recording techniques, software and hardware, publishing your podcast, and more. At the end of the 12 weeks, you'll have launched a podcast for your personal ministry or YWAM location. Find out more about the course and sign up for updates about it at ywampodcast.com/course. YWAM Newcastle is running the Filmmaking on Your Taste Buds seminar from November 19th to December 8th.
Filmmaking on Your Taste Buds is a 3-week course designed to give students a taste test of the filmmaking process. You will learn from industry professionals on tasty topics such as writing, directing, cinematography, editing, and sound. You will gain hands-on experience as you collaborate with others to create a short film. So come along and get a taste of the action from the first spark of an idea all the way to your film's premiere.
Read more on the YWAM Newcastle website, ywamnewcastle.com. Thank you so much for listening to this, the 108th episode of the Youth of the Mission News Show podcast at YWAMpodcast.com/108. Hope that you tune in next time when we speak about and look at YWAM's Frontier Missions Ministry. Again, you can find links to all the stories that we talked about, watch the videos that we pulled the audio from, and more at our website, YWAMpodcast.com/108, where you can also leave feedback, leave your comments, and let me know your thoughts or even what ministry you're involved with. So thank you very much for listening. If you like the program, tell a friend. We'd really appreciate it if you shared what YWAM is doing around the world by sharing this podcast. And if you didn't like it, well, you know what? Tell a friend anyways. Maybe they will. So thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next time.
We set out across the sea. We set ourselves to the wind, and you were looking back at me with tear-stained cheeks and rosy lips, with nothing to forget.
You can hear previous editions of the YWAM Podcast, subscribe for new episodes, and check out the show notes at YWAMpodcast.com. The YWAM Podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution No Derivatives 3.0 license.